Howdy-ho, Andrew here. Welcome to the Onion Buns and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Oilers. So, before I get to anything else, I got a bit of a rant I got to get off my chest here. It's been bugging me, basically since the start of the season. Is anyone that knows me, I've only been doing these Oiler videos for about 2.5 months when I decided to start doing them. And anyone that's known me before that knows that I freaking hated how the Oiler fans, for lack of a better word, ran coaches out of town. I despised it. I thought Tippett and McClellan and Nelson and they were great. I didn't think they were the problem. There's only one coach in my almost 60 years that I felt was an absolute disaster in Edmonton, and that was Ralph Krueger. Ralph Krueger punished our team for standing up for each other. Even Kevin Biedska just spoke about this on this past Saturday CBC show. He said, when Eberle and Hall were on the Oilers, the Canucks intentionally took runs at them, and Biedska didn't say it. Well, what he said was because they were so talented that you had to slow them down somehow. What he didn't say is they knew they could get away with it because anytime anyone stood up for Hall or Eberle, or Nugent Hopkins for that matter, Ralph Krueger benched him. And that's exactly what happened to Mark Fistrick. Is Biedska, ironically, he took a dirty run at Hall in a game. And Mark Fistrick came out, and Mark Fistrick challenged Biedska and stood up for Hall. And, it was the type of hockey play you would expect on a rivalry. Well, Krueger benched for the rest of the game, and then after the game sent him down to the AHL for the rest of the season for standing up for his teammate. He put in Pylon Potter. Pylon Potter was half the player that Mark Fistrick. Mark Fistrick had more goals, better plus minus in a lot less minutes played than Potter was getting. Yet Krueger put Potter out because Potter played like a powder puff. He had size, but he played like a powder puff, and we ended up not even making the playoffs that season when all was said and done. So I had no respect for Ralph Krueger. It was the only time I've been happy with Craig McTavish. I like McTavish as a player, but as a coach and GM, I was never his biggest supporter. And when he fired Krueger, I was like, rah, yes, finally, maybe there's some good coming to this franchise. And then Krueger went to Buffalo and did the exact same thing and got the exact same result in Buffalo, and the National Hockey League is not the European or the Swiss or the German hockey leagues or wherever the hell he coached. I forget now. We have physicality in our game. We have grit in our game. It's not a skills competition only. So, I thought Krueger was a terrible coach, but that's really the only coach I ever really wanted fired of the Oilers. Until now. I'm sorry, Chris Knoblauch he's gotten on my last nerve this season already. Noah Phillips comes out, he is our best player on the ice in the game. Absolute best player, scores a goal. He is riding high, and he's sent to the press box for 3 games. Lazar comes out. He scores a goal. He's one of the best players. He wasn't the best player in the game, but he was one of the top 3 best Oilers in the game. He had 1 game in the first 9 games. The rest of the time, he was in the press box. Noah Phillips the other night, he was one of the best players again. He didn't get a goal this time, but he was strong defensively. He was strong as a net front presence. He had a really solid game. He's back in the press box again. But Bouchard can absolutely stink out every arena he's been in. He's literally cost us or lost us 3 games himself, and he's gifted top minute power play, top line, just no accountability for Bouchard. Everything's got to, So if you play well and you produce, you're punished. But if you play crappy and you don't produce, you're gifted everything. This is how Knoblauch is running the team. And frankly, I'm disgusted. I'm absolutely disgusted with it. This is not how a professional sports franchise should be run. It was really not. Darnell and Wallman were our best pairing the other night. Their reward, they got split up last game so that they could babysit Bouchard. And as it turns out, that was probably the best game I ever saw with Bouchard and Nurse as a pair, because usually it doesn't work out with those two as a pair. And everyone always blames Nurse, but it's not Nurse. Nurse plays his game. It's Bouchard who can't spell the word defense. And we saw 3 definite breakdowns on Bouchard's part last night. We just got lucky that they didn't cost us. One did, but that goal got called back on a offside, luckily. So yeah, I don't understand it. I don't. What is Knoblauch going for here? I shouldn't say that. I kind of know what Knoblauch wants, and I said this at the start of the season that this was going to do us in if we tried to do this. He wants offense, 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 offense. He doesn't care about defense. He doesn't care about physicality. He thinks we can just play shinny and outscore our defensive liabilities. And anyone with a working brain could have told him that doesn't work. Go look at the Toronto Maple Leafs over the last decade. They've been trying that. How well have they fared? That doesn't work. Hockey is more than just offense. Noah Phillips is having an excellent year as a third, fourth line player. Yet he's in the press box all the time. Lazar, he's only played 2 games, so it's a really small sample size, but he's not been our worst player in either of the 2 games. And he was one of our best players in one of the games. And he spent 8 games in the press box. I don't get it. I really don't get it. It's like, why will Knoblauch not allow the Oilers to be an actual balanced hockey team so that we can succeed? I asked this question in another video, and I'm going to ask it, is he intentionally trying to make us lose? And I'm really not being that facetious about it, because the moves he's making, the personnel choices he's making, make absolutely no sense to me. And it's frustrating the hell out of me as an Oiler fan. It's like we get Phil Tomasek and Fredericks were against the Seattle team, were probably our best line of the game. Like, they didn't score, but they were pushing the play. They were forechecking hard. They were a solid line. So sure enough, the next night, Phillips is in the press box and the line's broken up. And they were nowhere near as effective the next night as a line. I'm baffled. Seriously, somebody come into the comment section. Tell me what I'm missing here, because I'm not seeing it. I don't understand what he's doing, and it's driving me absolutely insane. So anyway, that's my rant to start off this episode of Let's Talk Oilers. Like, something's got to change. It's just that something has to change. We are losing to teams that we should be dominating. Eventually, we have to start playing the good teams. And if we play like we've been playing against the bottom of the league teams, we are going to get our asses handed to us on a silver platter. And I blame that on Knoblauch. Like I said, I am not that guy that blames coaches normally. I am the guy that usually sticks up for the coaches and says, no, the players have to do better. Like, they're paid all this money. They have to do better. No, this one's on Knoblauch. Just that simple. This is on Knoblauch. Like, the players do have to play better, but I think Pod Colson said it best when he was asked, how do you like your line? And he just looked at the report and said, what line? These guys have no clue who they're playing with from shift to shift. Like, most teams have 4 lines, and you might move one player, like a player's hot that day, so you move them up. And, so there's a little bit of tweaking. But with Knoblauch, you just have 16 forwards, and he's just willy-nilly putting them out there. And now he's doing it with the defense, too. Ekholm is not to blame for Bouchard. Bouchard is to blame for Bouchard. If you want to wake Bouchard up, put him in the bleeping press box for a game. No, it doesn't have to be 2, 3, 5 games. 1 game. Put him up there and say, no, what you've been doing is not acceptable. You have to bear down and play defense. You can't just be cherry picking for offense nonstop, because that's killing us. Like, you got to hold him accountable, and you got to send him a message. Rewarding him with the top power play and first line minutes, and, every time he has a bad game, you punish Ekholm. That's not sending a message. That's not accountability. That's enabling him to continue to do what he's been doing, which is sucking. Evan Bouchard has sucked this year, plain and simple. There's been a couple moments where you see the positives of Bouchard, but the 95% of his play this year has sucked, and yet he's rewarded. Game after game after game. That's on Knoblauch. Like, at a certain point, you got to stop blaming Bouchard. That's on the coach. It's time for the coach to be the coach. He's got to stop trying to be these guys' best friend and playing favorites and buddy, and be the adult in the room and be the coach. All right. So I got that off my chest. So let's get into something fun. Making fun of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I got the Halloween edition for you this week. So right off the bat, we have Happy Halloween Leafs. Come on, if that's not making you smile and laugh, nothing will. The next one up we have is the Maple Leafs showed up in costume for their game. Here you go. No courage, no heart, and no brains. You're Toronto Maple Leafs. Really, that saying could just kind of fit Austin Matthews by himself. I wonder who the other two are. And to finish it off, because the Blue Jays are in the World Series, now that's how you complete a comeback in the playoffs. And that's my making fun of the Toronto Maple Leafs this week. I love this part of the series. So, all right. So a little bit of news is, as everybody knows, Walman returned to the lineup, thank God. And he's had 2 strong games so far. And Tomasek has looked pretty decent out there. He had 1 weak game. I did actually give him a slug in 1 game because he was, the invisible thing is like you just don't notice him. But for the most part, he's been pretty good. And I really do like Tomasek on the power play as the net front presence. Like that game we had with Savoy replacing Tomasek, our power play was freaking ugly. We had no front net presence, and it showed. We just cycled the puck around the perimeter and never even came close to scoring. Tomasek gets in there as a net front presence, and suddenly we're getting opportunities. So I really like him as the net front presence. And we got a little bit of Zach Hyman news. The Edmonton Oilers are hoping Zach Hyman returns to the lineup in early November. Chris Knoblauch mentioned November 1st as a possible date, but we'll see. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be in the next week or 2 at the most, and we'll have him back. So that's big, rah, thrilled about that. So yeah, so that's that. So let's get down to the games we had. The first game we had was October 21st, 2025, Oilers versus Senators. I was shocked, and I just covered it in my rant, but I was shocked. Lazar got sent to the press box after being one of the best players on the ice. So Phillips drew back in after sitting 3 games. He should have never sat for any of those 3 games. Unfortunately, that means Knoblauch put Lazar into the press box, and Lazar the night before or the game before was one of our best players and got a goal. You can watch my rant at the start. This shit is driving me absolutely mental. Kapanen is out 6 to 8 weeks. Skinner is in net. So the first period, Oiler penalty at 12:19, cross-checking to Nurse. It was a bad call. It was obviously a push, but the referee set the tone right off the bat, and then they hit the Senators with an equally bad call right after that. We had Howard definitely has nice hands, but he still doesn't understand this is the NHL and not university. 3rd time this year he tries to deke out 3 defenders and gets shut down with no play made. They just basically dump on his ass. He's got to break himself of that habit. Phillips, as I said, he always stands out in every game. He drew a nice slashing penalty and Oiler power play, but unfortunately power play looked horrible. McDavid scores at 3:29, top right corner. What do I keep saying, people? If you want to score in the NHL, shoot high. That was the end of the first. Second, this game went to overtime. Oilers draw a penalty at 4:35, slashing. Oiler power play 4-on-3. It was a sloppy power play, but they had good pressure in the final 20 seconds. And Walman scores at 2:36 of the overtime. Blast from the blue line to the top of the net. 3 stars of the game for me were Walman, OT winner, Skinner, 100th win, and Howard, first NHL goal. So anyone out there thinks I'm only ever negative on Howard and Savoy? No. When they do something good, I give them the credit, and I'll give them the props. 3 slugs of the games were Rosovich. He was invisible for the entire game. This was that one game I was talking about that he just wasn't good in. It was almost Savoy, but Ross, Savoy had that right at the end of the game. He won the draw that got the puck over to Walman to blast it in, and that pulled him out of the slug just for that one play, really. Otherwise, he was just as invisible. Tomasek was invisible, so he got the second slug. And Nurse, because he took 2 penalties. One of them was absolute crap, not on his part. But, he took 2 penalties that cost us. So when you do that, you end up in a slug. The next game was Montreal. Nothing really. Lazar was put back into the press box. Lazar remained in the press box. I think that's ridiculous, but whatever. And like I got a lot of notes of Knoblauch screwing up all the lines, but I covered that in my rant, so there's not much sense going over that. Knoblauch, he seems to think he's not doing his job unless he's changing the lineup. The lines, not even the lineup, but the lines, who's on the lines, shift to shift. Pickard got the start. The final score was 6-5 Oilers. Oilers scored with 109 in the third. Podkolson from Nurse and Wallman. Shots on net were 29-27 for the Oilers. Alrighty, for the 3 stars of the Montreal game, I have McDavid with 3 assists. Podkolson gets his first goal of the season, and Nurse has 2 assists. For the 3 slugs, I went with Howard. He was invisible all game. Contrary to what the media was saying, I didn't notice him at all. I had people over watching. They didn't notice him either. And then also Ekholm and Bouchard for defensive lapses. It's almost becoming comedic now, but whatever. So, yeah, that's my 3 stars and my 3 slugs. Next game was Oilers versus Seattle. I went into this game blind. I had so much stuff going on in the real world that I didn't get to do any prep for the game whatsoever. So I just recorded the game, got home later that night, sat down and watched it. So the Oilers lost 3-2 to Seattle. What I wrote was this game was winnable. Just we did not give a 60-minute effort. That's really been a big thing too, and it goes back years. So for some reason this team doesn't like giving a 60-minute effort. They like giving a 20-minute effort, a 10-minute effort. They don't like the idea of playing all 3 periods. 3 stars were Nurse, Roslovic, and Wallman. 3 slugs were Bouchard, Ekholm, and Knoblauch. And then the final game of this week was Game 2 versus the Canucks. Game 10 overall. I wrote right off the bat. So last night, one of our best players was Noah Phillips. So Knoblauch rewards him by sending him to the press box again. Yeah, he's in the 3-star. Well, he wasn't in the 3 stars, but he almost was the game before. And his reward is the press box. I'm so tired of it. This game goes to overtime. Vancouver scores 3:17. Redirect from the blue line shot. 4-3 Vancouver. Shots on net were 33-30 for the Oilers. Oilers got a point, but this game was winnable, just like the Seattle game if they showed up for the first 2 periods. They didn't. They looked horrible in the first 2 periods. 3 stars of the game were Leon, Roslovic, and Fredericks. And Fredericks had, he didn't get any points, but he had 8 hits. And that's the most engaged he's ever been physically. His line was not as effective as the night before in Seattle when he was with Phillips and Tomasek, but individually, he was running and gunning out there last night against Vancouver. 3 slugs were Ekholm. Mateus just doesn't look like Mateus of last year or the year before. He doesn't seem to have the foot speed this year. Savoy, he was invisible all game again. And I notice this a lot. It's like, they're really pushing Savoy on us, the media, the Stoffers, the Gregors, but most games he's invisible. So I must be watching a different Matt Savoy because I'm not seeing what's keeping him up here. I don't argue that he's got offensive upside and talent and skill, but his size is a real detriment for him out there because he's not Theo Fleury and he doesn't score like Patrick Kane. And he doesn't go to the hard spots very often. He tries to play a perimeter. Like I keep comparing him to Yamamoto because that's how Yamamoto played it. And is Kyler Yamamoto even in the NHL now? I don't think he is. So Savoy needs to change his outlook on how he plays if he wants to have an NHL career. And the final slug I gave to Chris Knoblauch because enough of it. Enough of the line changes. Enough of the putting good players in the press box and rewarding bad players. Enough. We're losing games because of his choices. So enough. And yeah, so that's my recap of the games we had this past week. Nothing really much else to report. So in a nutshell, Bouchard needs to wake up and Knoblauch needs to stop playing favorites and start taking this job seriously. It's really that simple. Anyway, that's my Let's Talk Oilers video for this week. If you like this video, leave a like, a subscribe, and a share. I'm trying to grow my channel, and a like, a subscribe, and a share does me wonders, and I do appreciate it. Takes 1 second to subscribe, costs you absolutely nothing, helps me immensely. Just hit the subscribe button on the bottom of the screen. always feel free to leave a comment. I encourage everybody to leave a comment. Please come tell me why you're frustrated, why you're happy, whatever. Come in, leave a comment. Let's have an interaction. Also, leaving a comment really does help me with the YouTube algorithm and getting more eyes on my videos. And as always, pew, 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 and shit. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.